Welcome to another edition of Indian Times with.
Kevin and Leo.
All right. And so today we got a lot of stuff going on, and Kevin's going to talk about news, not dealing with himself, and I'm going to actually talk about myself, which is unusual,
Yeah, you never do that.
right?
Such a humble man.
Somebody, one of Kevin's friends said that we should have named one of our shows "Who's More Humble," and I thought that was kind of funny. He said that we were debating which one of us were more humble,
Yeah.
which of course it's me.
Yeah, he's really way more humble.
Yeah, I'm like the best at being humble, the best ever. I got the biggest humble streak.
You are pretty humble. You say that, but it's true.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm like magnificently humble.
Yeah. I'm pretty humble, you gotta admit, right?
Yeah, you're a humble guy. You're awesomely humble.
I try.
All right, and so with that, let's get on to some actual news.
All right. Well, so it's been a hell of a week for us, man.
Yes, it's very busy.
A lot of stuff going on. Just a lot of cool stuff. A lot of weird stuff. We won't get too much into that, but
Yeah.
yeah. So one big thing that happened this week was on Tuesday, the federal ATF decided to raid the offices of Ho Chunk Incorporated, the Economic Development Corporation for the Winnebago Tribe of Nebraska. So about 8 a.m. on Tuesday, some 50 federal ATF agents came pouring into these. Just think of any office complex here in Lincoln or whatever community you're in. Come pouring into this office complex pretty early, guns drawn, yelling at people to, not move and announcing who they are. Pretty quickly thereafter, the ATF agents started carrying out, loading up boxes of documents, computers, things like that from the offices of Ho Chunk Incorporated. And hauling them out to semis and U-Haul type trucks. This went on for a good 14 hours on Tuesday, and some agents
14 hours.
Yeah, some agents even returned on Wednesday to do more of that. There was a Winnebago woman named Michelle Free Lemire who actually did some Facebook Live work, I guess, on Tuesday evening around 10, and she was actually able to film some of the agents as they were loading up boxes inside of a complex called Village Point in Winnebago. So this is all. I mean, it's anybody's guess as to why this happened, because the state and the feds are not talking. They will say nothing about it. There was one very brief statement to the Omaha World Herald that this had something to do with, a tobacco dispute. It's a dispute over tobacco, and the tribe believes, and I don't see any reason to question this because nobody's denied it, that it's the state of Nebraska that has convinced the U.S. Attorney for Nebraska, who's fairly new, that the U.S. Attorney needed to request the ATF to raid Ho Chunk's offices and collect all of these documents and computers in order to try to basically advance their position in a tax dispute. So the state of Nebraska and the Winnebago tribe have been arguing for decades now at this point over a tax compact, a tobacco tax compact. So, kind of an agreement that would sort of delineate how much money with the Winnebago tribe should provide to the state in lieu of, a form of a tax, I guess, but maybe they're not calling it that. But some kind of payment to the state for the fact that they sell tobacco in the state.
So is tribes actually supposed to pay the state tax?
Yeah. To some, no, not pay the state tax necessarily, but they have to pay something for the fact that they manufacture and sell tobacco
To the states? As a sovereign nation?
Yeah, that's sort of been the case law. Now, the Winnebagos have battled it, and they've disagreed with that, and they've won, here and there. But they've lost here and there, too. So there's a lot of debate about that. So in 1998, there was a huge agreement between 46 states and several U.S. territories in the District of Columbia and the 5 biggest tobacco companies in America. It was called the Master Settlement Agreement, and as part of that agreement, the big tobacco companies were required to contribute a huge pot of money every year to the states and all these other participants in the agreement, basically as sort of a vice tax. Okay, so since we're getting people sick and we know that, here's a huge pot of money that you can use to then pour into education, hopefully, pour into, getting people off smoking, that sort of thing.
So basically counteract.
But it's a massive amount of money.
The side effects of selling tobacco.
Sure. But tribes weren't part of that agreement initially because, for the most part, back in 1998, there weren't that many tribes manufacturing and selling their own tobacco. Now, eventually, those businesses did start popping up, including in Winnebago, and they started manufacturing their own brands of cigarettes. They manufacture 2 different brands of cigarettes currently, and so now the states have been able to get a lot of tribes, most tribes, to either participate in this master settlement agreement and contribute to this huge pot of money, or negotiate separate compacts with the state in which they provide some amount of funding each year to the state as this sort of vice tax.
So the state basically wants to dip into the pockets of the tribes because they're making money.
That's it, I think.
And they're looking for ways and. Basically, to me, it sounds like a legal form of extortion.
Yeah.
And it sounds to me like the Ho-Chunk Incorporated, which is part of the Winnebago tribe, isn't trying to be bullied into giving up money for something that they've never been part of or never agreed to in the first place as a sovereign nation.
Yeah.
And that it's basically sounding just like other intimidation tactics that happen in America, not just to natives, but to other countries as well,
Yeah.
So, I'm actually proud of Ho-Chunk Inc. for standing up for themselves, even though I know this has got to be stressful and bringing some major anxiety to all the people involved, all the employees, the tribe itself, even people looking on from the outside.
Well, quite honestly, this has put a lot of tribal jobs at risk. The manufacture of this tobacco, the distribution of the tobacco is a huge part of what Ho-Chunk Incorporated does. And obviously there are a lot of people involved in that. There are other kinds of positions that are at risk, too, because of all this. So, hopefully it gets, figured out pretty quickly, and whatever, the feds took, they'll give back at some point soon. But it just seems like a real ugly show of force. You have this federal agency that and the state of Nebraska, I believe, that are really going after the tribe and going after a tribe that's done so well for itself in the whole region, created jobs, and starting to lift this community out of poverty, and just doing a lot of good for the area. Not just the tribe, but Ho-Chunk Incorporated does all kinds of good things for the city of Sioux City. They're building all kinds of retail and housing developments in Sioux City. And so they're a huge employer for the region. And I don't know, why are they going after the tribe with such a heavy hand? 50 guns blazing on a Tuesday morning. The state didn't do the same thing when Native people came and argued that they needed to go into White Clay, Nebraska, where, up until about 2 years ago, there were 4 million cans of beer sold by 4 beer stores, primarily to residents of the Dry Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And most of these stores were blatantly violating liquor law in their operations, selling to intoxicated people, and selling to obvious bootleggers. People would pull up to these beer stores, open up their trunk, and load up 20 cases. And come on now. Obviously those are bootleggers. The same people doing it at the same time almost every week. So the fact that the state didn't do anything in that regard, it did nothing to try to stop that from happening, did nothing to investigate the unsolved murders in White Clay. And there were at least half a dozen now unsolved murders in this town of 14 people over the past 20 years. And there have been no convictions of anybody for killing anybody in White Clay. Half a dozen murders. Come on. Would you allow that kind of absolute incompetence as far as law enforcement goes in the community of Lincoln, in Omaha, anywhere else.
So was the misery that was being created by all that selling of beer benefiting anyone?
Yeah, it was benefiting the state of Nebraska to the tune of about $200,000 and some $100,000.
Was it benefiting
every year
was
in
it
taxes?
benefiting a specific race of people as well?
Yeah, I mean all the non-Indian beer store owners. So
Which are what?
Which are non-Indian, yeah.
What race are they?
They're white.
They're white people.
They're white people. Why shoot you?
Was it the takers of the fat? Was it hurting anybody?
It was only really hurting the native people
The native
of
people.
Pine Ridge, South Dakota.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get this. I'm just trying to get all
Sure,
these facts
yeah.
right in my head. So so then, but with Ho Chunk Inc., is Ho Chunk Inc. helping anybody? Is that benefiting anyone?
It's created enough employment that the county that it's in has a lower unemployment rate than the rest of the state of Nebraska, and that's pretty freaking amazing. I think.
Is it benefiting a certain race of people?
Native Americans.
Native Americans?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh.
But some non-Indians too, but primarily Native Americans, sure.
Is there somebody else that feels like it may be losing some resources by gaining for benefiting the natives?
Washichu.
The takers of the fat. Oh man, so they're not very happy.
Yeah.
Because they're used to exploiting and actually profiting off of it, but now
they feel like maybe they're getting a little.
And
exploited.
so they need to get some. They need to get the get back. We need to get back online.
Yeah.
And you Indians need to pay us for the privilege of helping your own self out of despair and poverty.
Yeah.
That sounds fair, right?
Yeah, it's so fair.
In American,
so fair. Yeah.
In American history, it does.
Yeah, it does.
If you go by the standard of how America was made and how it got to be the colonial power that it is today, I guess that is fair if you're going by those standards.
Yeah.
But not fair for us. No. I like the fact that you actually give facts.
Yeah.
And I just give opinion.
Yeah, I'm kind of trained too. I first started as a journalist. One of the things I hated the most was having to find facts for every story I did. Numbers. And I still don't enjoy it, I'll be honest. But it's become so routine now that I can help but throw out 50 different numbers anytime.
And whenever I bring up a story, that's the first thing you do is you say, "What are the facts?" And I'm just like, "Ooh, okay, I guess I got to research." Okay, Kevin. Because Kevin is actually a professional.
Oh, hopefully. Yeah.
Kevin is definitely a professional, and myself, I am more of a amateur.
In that regard, maybe.
Yes, at conveying the news.
Yeah.
So I like to give a little bit of my own personal emotional feel to it, and so Kevin has definitely teased me about that a few different times.
I don't tease you about that. I'm a humble man.
He's a humble man.
I am a humble man.
He is.
Chewi Chasha, common man.
He's a common man. That's awesome. But I just hope that Ho Chunk Inc. can stay strong through this and set a precedent. So because other tribes are going to be watching what's happening too, because this is going to affect people across the board.
Yeah.
And this has kind of been the battle we've been going through since day one anyway. Mm-hmm. And it's like, when is it ever going to end? Who knows? But we definitely need to get more invested in the infrastructure of America itself as well.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I was having some issues with police myself.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And when I put it out on my Facebook, I got almost 5,000 friends on Facebook. Mm-hmm. And when I put it out on there, what happened, a lot of people started talking derogatory about the police, calling them just really cliche, prejudiced, derogatory names like pigs and, just saying stuff like that. And I kept deleting those messages off of my Facebook. And people were like, well, why are you deleting this if they're abusing you and your family? And I said, because I'm not trying to create divide.
Hey, can we pause just real quick? Okay, and we're back.
All right, so we had to adjust the lighting.
Yeah.
This is a pretty new show, so we're still working out the kinks. But like I was saying, when I had incidents with the police with my family and people were making derogatory comments towards the police, I kept deleting them. And the reason I kept deleting them was because I didn't want to create more divide. I didn't want to create more hate. What I want to do is I want to help to fix the problem. And the only way to do that is to actually get within the system and change it from within, And so I encourage people to join the police department or to become a government official and change things from within, or work on it if you have your own legitimate business. Work on it from that legal aspect as well. So let me give you a little background on what happened.
Yeah, so I was going to ask for the facts.
Okay.
What are the facts here,
Well,
Leo?
the facts are, I come home from work, and my brother was in a domestic dispute with his girlfriend who had went off the treatment program. She's Native as well. They're all from the same tribe, but she has an alcohol problem. And she decided to come back, and she had started drinking, came back, and he had his kids from his baby's mother, who was a previous girlfriend, at the house. And the girlfriend who came back from the treatment program was angry, and they started to argue, and she called the cops on him. Okay, he takes off. She's out back. I don't see her. I come home, and this is about 7:30 at night, and my brother, one of my other brothers, who's super innocent, goes to work, comes home, plays video games, does his thing, is out front with the police, and you can see he's been crying. You can see the police badgering him. So I call up an advocate, right? And it's a white woman. And I say, hey, I need somebody here to witness what's happening because there's a ton of police here and I'm not sure what I'm walking into. Can you come over? So she says yes. She comes over. In the meantime, my brother tells me that the police are inside. I asked him if he let them in. He said no. And then one of the officers said that my other brother had fled the scene. And I said, well, what are you in the house for? At that time, they bring out my niece. My niece don't have any pants on, and she doesn't have any shoes on. So she's walking around, he's walking around in her socks, in these little boy short underwear, and a t-shirt. Okay, and so first thing I think of is, oh my goodness, what are you doing? How can you possibly think it's okay to bring a 14-year-old girl out of the house dressed like she is? Right? And so I asked that, I focused on that police officer. I started asking him questions about the lawfulness of his actions, and he gets upset, he gets offended, and he starts to try to bully me. And then they end up putting me in cuffs, cranking him on all tight, right? Okay, so then they give me an interfering with an investigation charge. But at that time, my advocate shows up, and as soon as she shows up and starts asking questions, they release me. They release my 14-year-old niece into her custody so that she can into her care, so that she can take my niece inside to put some clothes on. All this happened just from the time that I got home to the time that it took for her to get over to the house. And so they amended the ticket to failure to comply, which through some research I found out was a lot easier to convict than interfering with an investigation. So I'm broke. I don't have a lot of money. Sometimes I try to borrow money from Kevin, but he never loans me any money. Okay, yeah. Just so everybody knows it out there. But anyway, so I couldn't hire a lawyer, right? And so I ended up looking online and looking at YouTube videos the same way I fixed my roof. Looking on YouTube videos, and I found out how I could make these documents to submit to court. So I made a bunch of documents, right? Let me show you what I made. See all these documents here? This is Exhibit I. I got Exhibit A through I. I have a motion to dismiss with prejudice. I have a motion to strike because the police officers written report left out tons of things, like the fact that a non-native woman showed up and started asking questions before they actually released me, like stuff like that. That's pretty important. I got the disability of one of my brothers who has a mental disability, the one that they were badgering. I got that in here. I got custody papers for him when I used to take care of him as a child. I got papers of unopened mail because they were trying to tell me I didn't live at the house, and so I didn't have any right to be there asking questions. Well, guess what? I got mail all the way back from 2010 that I took pictures of. I got a flash drive because I started recording after that. The police officer, when I said, "Hey, why did you tell me that my brother left, and how are you guys still going in the house?" "Oh, I didn't say that." "Well, no, your exact words were," and he said, "Well, I have to apologize. I must have been misspoken." Okay, well, I got that all on tape. And then I got a motion to strike. I think I already said that. Well, I got all these documents, and so I handed them to the prosecutor the day of my trial. So we went through all this time with me trying to get a lawyer, but I couldn't do it. So I decided, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. So I figured out how to write up these documents. I handed them to the prosecuting attorney. The prosecuting attorney was not prepared for that, did not have any witnesses there. And here's the kicker. Here's the kicker.
Yeah,
okay.
Listen up.
The officer who marched my niece out with no pants on and no shoes on, who charged me with interfering with an investigation and then amended it to failure to comply, got in trouble like about 2 months after this happened to me for sexual assault and is in jail right now. He's in jail for that. The police officer who actually was the one who ordered me to be arrested. The officer who he ordered to do this, who he ordered to put on the cuffs on me, who put the cuffs on and left these huge marks on my arm, he's actually going to court right now for excessive force. He's being sued. Somebody's suing the state about that. So I hand this prosecuting attorney all these files. These are my wrists, and you can't see the picture very good, but they're pretty bruised. So I handed him all these files, and he just, when we were in court together, he wouldn't even look at me. And as soon as I got up to the judge's podium and I was going to start to talk about submitting my documents, the prosecuting attorney didn't even let me talk. He just said, "We motion to dismiss." And so it was over that quick. But, sometimes you're going to have to do a little due diligence to fight this, and I'm not done fighting it. I have complaints in the mayor's office. I have complaints in internal affairs. And, I don't have any kind of legal training or any legal education. Sometimes you just have to research until you can figure out what to do to stand up for yourself. But definitely trying to fight them in the street, yelling at them, any of that kind of stuff is only going to get you hurt. So, I commend what Ho Chunk Inc. is doing, and, they are going to get some blowback for it. And am I going to get blowback from it? Yeah, if I go out and I start getting myself in trouble, the police are going to definitely strike me pretty hard. But as long as I keep my nose clean and stay on the straight and narrow, just like Ho Chunk Inc. is doing, we should be able to prevail.
Yeah.
And that was a really long story. Mm-hmm. But, what I'm basically saying is we got to stand up for ourselves, because ain't nobody else going to do it. And if we're not rich enough to be able to hire some high-end lawyers to help us, it's not going to happen.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I mean, a lot of people would have just taken the charge. Maybe you just pled guilty, just to get it over with, get it done with. So, yeah.
Yeah.
I want to commend you on that, man. I mean, that's,
and seeing my niece like that made me furious.
Yeah.
And I'm 6'6", 250 pounds. I towered over every single police officer there. Mm-hmm. But there was nothing I could do besides get killed.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do? Only way I can fight back is to do it legally, to get them to drop all this, because this was just another piece of them harassing us, intimidation.
Yeah, it's interesting, the angle you brought up about the white woman who you invited to come, and as soon as she showed up, all the officers, wanted to do everything they could to kind of resolve the situation at that point. I don't know. I mean, I see that in my own life. So I'm married to a non-native woman, a white woman, Washi Chuwian. And it's interesting. I mean, I see that all the time in my life. So we go out to eat, and the servers inevitably are talking to her the whole time, taking orders, like I'm a child, like she's my caregiver or something, Whenever we go, even if I pay the bill, if I'm the one that hands over the cash to pay the damn money, to pay the bill, they bring the change back to her. God damn, man. Let me be a man. Let me have a little bit of goddamn dignity in this world. I mean, is it really that?
I'm
so
sorry
much
I'm
to
laughing
ask.
so hard. I just can picture that. I'm just picturing that in my mind.
I mean, I don't know. I'm a humble man. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
I'm a
you're
common
humble
man.
man.
I'm not
Common
asking
man.
for much here. I just want to be able to pay the bills,
Right.
pay
Get
for
my
some
Get my change
groceries.
back. Get my change back.
Yeah. And so, and it's come to the point now where I feel like I need to be the one who always like buys things.
Mm-hmm.
Not that she doesn't offer or she can't or anything like that. She makes more money than I do, but I always feel like if we're in public and we're paying something, I want to be the one paying it. Just to kind of show people that I'm not some deadbeat husband. I'm not letting her take care of me. I'm not a made man or whatever. And it's just, I don't know. It's just, I get that. I get that sort of perspective. And I don't know. It looks like whenever Native men are with white women, and probably the other way around too, Native women and white men. I mean, it's, but I think women deal with this to some extent all the time. We get to experience it a little bit because of the kind of relationships we're in, but anyway. Thought I'd share that. I thought that was kind of an interesting angle to your story there that, I can certainly relate to. But,
Yeah, I can see the frustration in that too.
Yeah.
Sometimes I think you're a lot more observant than I am too of things. Sometimes I notice you like sit back and watch more than I do and analyze. I'm kind of like happy-go-lucky.
Yeah, I mean, pretty oblivious, and I guess ignorance is bliss and all that. But
I caught that one.
Laid it up pretty thick because I knew I had to.
I'm not that happy-go-lucky. I can catch jabs.
So Leo, you had a hell of a day today, man.
Yeah.
Just charges dismissed at 9 a.m. and
That was at
about
9
2 hours later.
2 hours later at 11 a.m.
Yeah.
I have a meeting. So this meeting is for an art project, a city art project. Okay, and there's already city art projects going on. We live in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they have this city art series that they had been doing, and there was these 7 foot tall hearts and sculptures, and these 7 foot tall or 6 foot tall light bulb sculptures. These bicycles. Sculptures, and they had various artists. These are like 80, 90 different sculptures around the city and various artists painting these. And then over the years, they have come out with different themes. And so I've seen this, and then once I became a teepee maker, I was thinking, wow, you know what would be cool? No, actually before that even. I was thinking, well, you know what would be cool if they had like a native teepee version of these. So I actually started to develop that plan, and I searched out the woman who had created these projects, and I approached her about my idea, and she was immediately interested, and she was immediately supportive, and we start working out a plan, and then finally we have a project plan going. We're working on the budget still, but so we brought it first to the mayor's office. Well, no. First, I brought it to the tribes, and we got reactions back from 3 tribes of Nebraska. We got reactions back from the Winnebago tribe, who was interested. We got reaction back from the Santee tribe that was interested, and we got reactions back from the Omaha tribe, which were more than interested. They were enthusiastic about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Big time.
So me and Kevin went up actually to the reservation, Macy, and we spoke with the tribal chairman, and we also spoke with one of the council members.
And the treasurer.
Yeah, and remember how happy he was?
Yeah. He was very excited. It's just a really amazing moment to find somebody that wanted to be invested in this the way that we do,
He said, he said that he had a lot of bad news and had to be dealing with a lot of negative things for a while lately, and it was burdening him. And so, like, getting this information about us doing this project, it was just something really good that made him happy. So the project's called the United Nebraska Teepee Art Project, and so we want to do 25 to 50 teepees, 6-foot teepees in the city of Lincoln to start with. They're going to be a traveling art project. And have the tribes, not just the tribes that are here currently, but also the tribes that used to live here. We're going to try to approach them and get artists to represent these tribes, and not artists from just anywhere, not like me painting up things that I think might be related to the tribes. I'm talking about going to the tribes themselves and saying, hey, we would like you to represent yourselves on one of these teepees, and can you find yourself a artist to represent you? And then we'll give you the teepee, and you paint it, and we'll put it amongst this village of teepees. And so that's what we're working on now. The Omaha tribe said that they had 2 people and that they wanted 2 teepees, and so they were asking, hey, is there a limit? And I'm like, since I created this program and this project, and since the tribes are actually the most important part of this project, yeah, you can definitely have 2.
Yeah.
I'm just proud that you even accepted this, and you accept me in this project. And so it felt really like a privilege.
Absolutely.
So, we want to put them in this setting, like one space where all these 50 teepees, or up to 50 teepees, representing all these different cultures, can be seen by anybody who comes there, and just have this magnificent message of, this is the original home of the indigenous people, and that's what that teepee will symbolize. These are the tribes that are here, existing, thriving. This is the history of them, because they're going to be on a wooden deck, and then we're going to be able to put plaques on that deck. We're going to mount several plaques on that deck to tell a story of the tribe and the culture, whatever message they want to give, the artist, and all of us who are involved. And even speaking on Indians.com, or whatever other information that Kevin would want to put on that plaque. I think that's important that they all have it on there as well. So it's a huge project. But we had the chairman of the Omaha tribe there, and we had council members there, and we had
cultural affairs director for the Ponca tribe.
Yeah, I mean we had a lot of people, and then we had these leaders from all these different organizations, these local organizations that were there. It was a huge list of
Lincoln Public Schools, Lincoln Arts Council, Nebraska Arts Council, St. Monica's. Just a lot of really reputable organizations wanting to get behind this. There were probably 20 to 30 people in the room today, and it was such a diverse collection of people. You had Native Americans, I think you had some Latinos there, you had white people, black people, Thomas Christie from Lincoln Public Schools, who's just had some really important things to say there, and it was really a great collection of people. It was great to see that people are wanting to be involved in this. They're excited about it, and this all comes from you, honestly, man. I mean, this is, they get your passion. They feel your passion. They want to be part of that. So it's quite the testament to that.
And sometimes it's hard to figure out how you can help on a grander scale.
Yeah.
When you're somebody who's helpful and you're just going around using your truck, because I own a truck. You go around using your truck just to help people move around the city, who are just struggling. And so every other year they're moving, or, something like that. It kind of feels repetitive, and it kind of feels like I'm not really impacting the problem. And so, you would say, well, how is a huge art project going to impact the problem? Well, there's a lot of fundamental problems that are involved with the little problems that are individual amongst, our people, and not even just natives.
Well, imagine, okay, so earlier in this podcast, you talked about your interactions with the police, and now imagine inviting those guys, to this teepee village where you have 50 of these 6-foot tall, gorgeous teepees, and each one individually painted. Some of them painted with maybe some non-Indian designs. So maybe somebody's Swedish, and they have some kind of Swedish designs on them. Maybe somebody's Czechoslovakian, or maybe somebody wants to paint something from their Latino culture on there. Imagine walking into this teepee village, Think of the village at Greasy Grass right before the Battle of Little Bighorn, that war camp. Turn that on its side in a way and make it into a peace camp that you're walking into.
Yeah.
And you got these 50 gorgeous, colorful teepees, and you get to walk up to each one of them, and there's other people there with you, all looking at these teepees and seeing people's perspective, the way they see the world on these teepees. How unifying that can be, how much we can learn from each other from that, how much we can really connect. And I think that's so much of what is hurting us in our society, and you know, the symptoms we see every day, like the interactions I described with people at restaurants when I'm with my wife, and the interaction that you had with the police. You know, these kinds of things are oftentimes just fueled by that lack of understanding and that lack of sympathy that we have for each other, because we don't really know each other. We don't really understand each other. We never connect. We never really meet each other. There's so few people who've actually met real Native Americans or have Native American friends, or, you know, like you said today, how many have listened to a Native American person sing a song, you know, in their native language? Those kinds of things are pretty rare for non-Indians. So this kind of a project, I think, has incredible opportunity and limitless potential. So,
Yeah.
proud to be part of it.
Yeah, I'm happy you are too. I love how articulate you are, and that's really good. And I should probably use that a little bit more when we go into these interactions. You know, maybe I'll go in with like the Stoic Indian, the Stoic movie Indian, and then I'll turn it over to you. Like
And I'll be the stuck in.
Many-
I'm not great in front of people. I don't
Many
mind talking.
winters ago, my people lived in teepees.
And it would be good to see that again.
Kevin, tell them what I'm thinking. And then you go into the project proposal, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just like you kind of did just now.
Yeah,
That was awesome.
sure, yeah.
I love that.
I'm good. That's what I'm here for, man. Interpret your gibberish.
Yeah, and then after you tell them like all the important stuff, and you do it super articulately, everybody's gonna come to you and say, "Oh, Leo's so wise. Did you hear him speak?" Because you know everybody thinks that movie wise Indian voice
Yeah.
makes you wise regardless of what you're saying. You know?
You're right. You're right. I could probably learn from that.
Water is wet, and the sky is blue, and that's why I walk on the red road. You know, then people are like, well, that was so profound. He he explained like the essence of water, and he also explained, you know, the sky and how it's so dynamic.
I wonder if you're giving me an Indian name.
And then I'm like, Kevin, tell him what I'm thinking. That should be our
Like going to my nerd shit, you know. Throw some facts and figures, numbers out there.
These
Everybody's
are
like,
facts. Because I'm about facts. That's funny.
yeah. Well, so we complement each other, I think, in that
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's some problems going on around the country too.
Certainly are. Mm-hmm.
You know, man, I always have problems with his last name. So there's a Representative Eric Deshini. He's a Democrat, and he actually is Navajo. He's a Navajo lawmaker, and some Trump supporters were at this rally, and they started to harass him about what country he's from and if he's here legally, right? And so it's just ironic, you know, with everything happening with the immigration and stuff, that they're just targeting whoever's not white.
Mm-hmm.
Like, are you here? Are you supposed to be here? I don't know if you're supposed to be here. And then they go up to a native and they're trying to kick him out as well. You know, go back to your country, Nativia.
Mm-hmm.
Where is Nativia?
I think we're sitting on it.
I remember when that was a big
I think
thing.
wherever you are, that's where Nativia is.
I remember when that was a big viral
Sure.
joke, Nativia. But yeah, we have a lot of bad things happening in the world. That's why I think this United Nebraska TPR project is important, because I want to show some unity, and we have to start here.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And eventually, I would actually like to make this a national and then an international arts tour too. But I want to change it. I'm going to tell you, like, you know, for the city, for the state, I would like to show the different cultures that are here. But if I end up going national with it as a national tour, I would like to have it a tribal,
Yeah.
you know. because then I can incorporate all the tribes, and if I went international, I could do the same way.
Yeah. And just so we have it on the record,
Yeah.
I want to give my suggestion for either something to incorporate into the name of the project or just in the promotional material. So I think you have to use the phrase blank canvas somewhere.
Blank canvas.
Blank canvas.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, for what now? For what reason?
Think about it.
Okay.
Okay. So, I'll say, so anytime that people talk about some kind of project they want to do. Say there's a developer going to build something in some part of the city. They'll say, well, there's nothing there right now. There's nothing on the land. It's a blank canvas. It's just a phrase, So
Yeah.
So then you can do anything with that. You can make it whatever you want to be. But it's a pretty common phrase,
Yeah.
blank canvas. But here, you're actually using canvas
Yeah.
for the teepees, So the idea of, and really in the sense, that's kind of typifies the project. Every artist gets to decide what they want to do with this.
Yeah.
Every artist gets to imprint their own identity, their own hopes, their own fears, maybe even, onto this canvas. It's a blank canvas,
It's a blank canvas.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Mhm.
I like that.
Cool.
The blank canvas.
Yeah.
We will use the blank canvas to create hope and unity amongst the people. And I am a humble, common man. And as such, I will bring blank canvas to the world.
What's your Indian name, by the way?
Hokshila Luta.
Ah,
Red boy.
Red Boy, yeah.
Yeah.
So, you guys start every presentation with that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I actually don't hardly use it unless somebody asks me or
Yeah.
if I'm somewhere where people actually will.
I don't think many Indians use their Indian name for much, right?
I don't think we're really actually supposed to unless it's something that we've adopted as our main name.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
that's-
So
that's
I mean,
what I thought.
it's been a long week for us. I mean, one thing I wanted to mention real quick is we got to host 6 runners from Winnebago
That
on
was
Monday.
That was amazing.
And yeah, that was pretty cool. So these guys, they started out on Sunday, 6 members of the Winnebago tribe, and they jogged. It's over 100 miles from Winnebago, Nebraska to Lincoln, Nebraska. And they had a sacred stick that they carried along the way, and they passed it along in relay fashion. But their goal in all of this was to raise awareness about murdered, missing, and sex-trafficked Native American women. And they also wanted to celebrate the end of a month-long sacred fire that had been burning in Winnebago. This fire was hosted in a teepee near the powwow grounds, and it was a place where 24 hours a day for a month, anybody could walk inside and say a prayer, burn some tobacco, some sage, whatever. They had a little altar there with different things that you could put into the fire as part of your prayer. And you could say a prayer, and maybe you just want to leave, or maybe you want to stick around and talk to somebody. Maybe you have some problems. Maybe you have something you need help with. There's always somebody by the fire. There's always a firekeeper there, always watching the fire, tending it, visiting with whoever visits the fire. I thought it was a really cool idea. I mean, it's Indian people have so many needs. Everybody does, but let's be honest here. I mean, Native American communities are struggling and hurting in a lot of ways, and the idea that there's this place where you can go 24 hours a day for this kind of support I thought it was pretty cool. So that was part of the reason they had the run too, was to celebrate the end of that month-long commitment. They're taking the fire now to the Flandreau Santee Sioux reservation up in South Dakota, so they'll start that there if they haven't already pretty soon.
So
Yeah.
So when we get to Winnebago, we actually went there for a different story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We went there for the fact that the Winnebago tribe is actually getting ready to take over their own hospital that has existed there on the reservation for, I don't know, a long time since I was a child.
Yeah.
So while we're at the story, we already knew about the sacred fire, of course, because it had already been in existence for almost a month, and it was nearing the time that they were going to do the run. And so we decided after we had went to this meeting that we were going to go to the sacred fire, to the teepee ourselves, and we did, and we said a prayer, and we met Eric. Kevin had already met him previously, but that was my first time meeting him, and he was telling us, and this was our first time actually hearing about the run, or at least mine. Was that your first time hearing about it as well?
No, I had heard about it before.
Oh, you knew about it?
That's actually why I wanted to go back to the fire that
Oh,
second
okay,
time, was
good.
to ask him, what he had
The
planned.
details?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that was my first time, so I thought it was amazing. But then Kevin started talking with Eric about the details of his finalizing the run in Lincoln at the Capitol and what he had set up. And because Eric had been so busy with organizing the run and keeping the sacred fire lit, he hadn't really had a lot of time in organizing the end of the run in Lincoln. And so Kevin spoke with me and he said, hey, we should work together on making a reception for these runners when they came into Lincoln. And so we had, 3 days?
Yeah, if that.
We had 2 full days.
Yeah.
And then the day of the runners showing up. So 2.5 days, I guess, to plan and execute a reception and a dinner and speakers and
Yeah.
Kevin recruited some press to show up, and so they did a story on him, and the numbers were somewhat small, but we were actually able to still get the message out. We were able to get it out
pretty
on
full
social
room,
media.
actually. I was really impressed.
Well, we had about 40 people there, I think.
Yeah, and the food was amazing, and all thanks to Leo and his crew. I mean, wow, what do we have? How many? 12 pizzas or something? Gabubu bread. We had chicken and burgers, and I mean,
and it was all the community.
Hell of a spread.
We just put the word out, and the community said, you know what, this is something that is important, and we'll step up and we'll help
amazing.
At the last minute.
Build it and they will come, right?
Yeah, and people showed up,
Wow.
and I mean, okay, so it just happened to be a anti-sex trafficking conference. So I went to this conference, and the person who organized this conference has an organization that fights against sex trafficking, and I approached her and I told her about what was happening, and she was super interested in showing up, and she actually did, and she spoke on a lot of the research and a lot of the statistics and everything. And actually during the sex trafficking conference, they did extensively talk about the problem when in indigenous country with Native women who have been kidnapped, raped, and murdered, and how there is no statistics, no legal statistics on this epidemic. And so I was having a conversation with one of the people who was a retired UNL professor, and I told him, I said, that because of this, because you have been doing these type of statistics, I would like to be able to speak with you more and maybe work with arranging you to come into Native country and start to develop these statistics for us so that we can start combating this on a more official level.
Great.
And so he gave me his contact information, and I'm supposed to contact him, but he wasn't available to come in on that short notice to our reception for the runners.
Sure.
But she showed up and she talked a little bit about it, and I told my story too about helping out with 2 different women who had ran or escaped from sex trafficking. And even though I'm trying to develop or trying to work towards helping the indigenous women who are suffering from this right now, the 2 women that I actually helped were white women, because you can't discriminate when it comes to suffering like this.
Yeah.
Because that's just cruel. That just makes you being self-centered and not really actually caring about people, but just caring about yourself.
Yeah.
So those runners, they ran for 2 days.
They were beat when they got here.
Yeah,
I mean,
they were beat, and they still were patient, and they did their interviews, and they were looking over at the food.
Can we eat? 10 more minutes.
Yeah, because we had a television news reporter there, and so he wanted to do the stories before,
You want to do interviews. And, certainly want to give them time.
And
I want to give people a little time to show up too, because it was pretty thin right at 5 o'clock.
Yeah. And so, but I could see all those runners, like they were hungry and they kept looking over at the food, and I wanted to hand them some, but we had an elder there, and we were going to have him pray over the food before we all ate. So I didn't want to hand out food to people and then pray over it after the fact. I wanted to go ahead and do it the proper way, and so.
Well, I know they dug in once they started, because I was looking at a couple of them. Their plates were like piled this high full of food. I'm not kidding. Like 3 pieces of Google Boo Boo bread and 4 pieces of pizza, and they're going to take it all with them for the ride home too. So.
Yeah, for the listeners who don't know what gabubu bread is, gabubu bread is a skillet bread, and basically fry bread is made almost with the same recipe as gabubu bread, but fry bread is deep fried. Gabubu bread is patted down into like these thick, about maybe the size of 2 or 3 pancakes stacked together, but the dough is thicker. Or it's a lot more, it's a lot more solid. And then you just put it in a skillet with just a little bit of oil in the skillet, not able to fry, but just enough to keep it from sticking. And then you fry both, or you just cook both sides of this bread in this pan, and that's gabubu bread, or skillet bread, or pan bread. A lot of different names for it.
Yeah, well, that was good. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah,
so.
That was my cousin. She had actually came from Manderson, South Dakota, which is on the Pine Ridge Native Reservation. So, and she actually is going back for a funeral, which is sad because that's one of the things that I'm always hearing about is our relatives dying.
Yeah,
and it seems like every week somebody's dying, and it's just it's so hard to watch people mourning constantly.
Do you know whose funeral she's going back for?
No, I don't.
Because I just had a cousin actually die there last week, and I made Braveheart.
No, whoever it is, they're bringing him back to the reservation.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and she said the name once, and I didn't recognize it.
Yeah.
So for some reason that caused me not to remember it.
Yeah.
But so I'm glad that even from what happened at Standing Rock, that there are still water protectors, and there are still people tending the sacred fire who are combating other social issues that are happening in Native country. And
we should have that. Eric Armel, the guy who started the sacred fire in Winnebago, is a water protector. He was in Standing Rock, and so he wants to, he wanted to carry that message from Standing Rock, and this was his way of doing that. Was, starting these sacred fires throughout Indian country.
Well, and it's sad that the people are not being heard by the people who are the government. It's sad that the people are separated from the government now, when the government is supposed to represent the people. Yeah. And now the government is trying to put in place laws and restrictions against protesting pipelines and protesting social issues. Sure. And that is actually really scary. Yeah. And they're using what's happening with Standing Rock and with some of these other these different civil disobediences as the premise for them to try to restrict future civil disobedience from people who are actually trying to protect their own resources or their own humanity or civil rights. Yeah.
So, facts. In Iowa and Ohio, those states are considering laws that would prevent these kinds of demonstrations against projects that are considered critical infrastructure. So, I guess however you interpret that, pipelines possibly,
natural gas,
mining, oil mining, fracking, that sort of thing. I guess some would argue those are critical infrastructure. I don't necessarily think they are, but
and Energy Transfer Partners is one of the main underwriters of that bill, which is crazy. How is a corporation writing bills and laws?
Well, at this point, how are they not? I mean, it just seems like it's happening all over the place. So was that photographer for a federal agency that was fired recently for he had to cover this meeting between one of Trump's cabinet members and a oil executive, and this meeting was just obviously like a family reunion, between these two individuals. The cabinet member who's supposed to be writing regulations about the coal industry and the oil industry, just hugging this coal executive. I guess it was a coal executive. I think I said oil, but it was this coal executive just hugging him. When they first met, and later on during their meeting, basically just saying, okay, this coal executive saying, here's what I want, here's the kind of legislation I need, and then just telling this cabinet member what is what. And the photographer actually got a photo of some of the documents that the coal executive handed over to this Trump cabinet member, and in it there was some language that he wanted in a bill. And later on, there was a bill that was proposed by the Trump administration that used that language verbatim. And lo and behold, this guy gets fired just a few weeks later for taking these photographs, for doing what he was paid to do. That's the world we're living in, man. I mean, it's just, you got oil, gas, coal executives just literally writing the legislation that we're going to have to deal with, that's going to screw our environment. To what degree, I don't know. I mean, hopefully it can be repaired, but if this kind of stuff continues, I mean, we're all going to have to become activists. We're going to have to give up our day jobs and just stand out there on the line and try to fight these things. But,
well, and I think the call to action is there's different battlefields that we all have to pick, and we
Sure.
have to all have to choose, and I think actually going into government office is really important as well. I really think that these water protectors and these protectors of civil rights out here who are working on these front lines to try to get their voices heard of not just themselves but everybody else that they're representing, including me, I think they're extremely important.
Yeah.
But I think we have to work in tangent also with other people who are going into the actual system to change it from within as well. You know what I mean? And we need to be recruiting people and helping them to develop into both roles, whichever role that they naturally can fit into, develop them into that role. Eric Morrell is a veteran. He's a seasoned veteran, a combat veteran, and a native. But now he is actually putting all of his efforts, all of his talent, all of his discipline into actually helping change the system for the people.
Yeah.
Instead of enforcing the system against other people. And I commend him for that.
Yeah, definitely.
So.
Well, we're winding down here, and anything else you wanted to add, or?
No, I'm just happy that I was able to go to court today and actually be effective, because I was afraid when I got there. I was afraid that they would take all my documents that I wrote out and tell me, oh no, this doesn't have this, or this isn't specific about this, and find something to nitpick it and actually throw it out because of it,
Yeah.
And they could so easily have did that.
Sure.
And I think the fact that I gave it to the prosecuting attorney, and the prosecuting attorney was thinking that he was just going to be able to tell his whatever, just read the reports to the judge, and that I wouldn't have anything but a real ignorant rebuttal, would make it a quick case. And I think he felt like, okay, well, I haven't prepared for this, and this guy's got 12 documents that he's bringing in and an audio file.
And two of my witnesses are disgraced police officers.
Yeah.
So.
And I had brought a witness.
Yeah.
Susan Alleman was the person who actually I called to come to the house to advocate for us. I asked her to come with me to court.
Yeah.
That way she could give testimony if they're like, well, who is this person? Because she was also in the audio tape.
Yeah.
You could hear her asking the police questions about their conduct. But, the way they responded to her compared to the way they responded to me when I was asking the questions, it's night and day. And guess who's on the night side? Me.
Yeah.
But
that about sums up our episode, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean...
But I'm happy. I'm happy for the universe
Yeah.
providing us with the opportunity to make a podcast like this, and for the opportunity for us to, keep thriving for a better world.
That's a great way to end it. Yeah. So we complain a lot on this series, and there's a lot to complain about, sadly. But there's so much to be thankful for, and the fact that Native people are starting to take control again, to starting to manage the message again, so to speak, harnessing their voices again in defense of their own people and their own causes. I just think is this an incredible revolution that's going on, and I think is going to turn the tide against all this ignorance and yeah,
empowerment, and it's
absolutely.
the seventh generation.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And with that, I say good night.
I hope.
Doksha.